The Philadelphia 76ers hit an absolute slam dunk in this year's NBA draft, adding a player that should have been more on the radar for a lot of teams out there. And I'm not just talking about Jared McCain, who there's been plenty of conversation about, and I've been really impressed by through his first 2 games of Summer League. But the guy that I mean to bring up is second-round pick, 41st overall selection, Adem Bona. Now, this is a guy who played 2 seasons at UCLA, is this true backup center type model that the Sixers are always looking to improve, and he has really opened some eyes through the opening 2 games of Summer League. Now, there is still plenty more action to break down, on-court product to get a feel of what this guy can bring, but through 2 games, there's a couple things that stand out dramatically. Number one, the motor that he plays with, and number two, the shot blocking ability that he's going to possess from day one. We're talking about in game 2 of the Summer League, him sending back 5 block shots. That just does not happen from anybody, and this is who he is expected to be. Now, this is a guy that the Sixers have been excited about, and I want to start by breaking down the opening press release when the Sixers officially drafted Bona, once again with that 41st overall pick, and it writes that, quote, Adem is a high-motor player with proven abilities as both a rim protector and switchable defender, Philadelphia 76ers president of basketball operations Daryl Morey said. Quote, he possesses an impressive blend of size, athleticism, and defensive toughness, and we're excited to add him to our team. As a sophomore this past season at UCLA, Bona averaged 12.4 points on 58.8% shooting, along with 5.9 rebounds and 1.8 blocks. He was named the 23-24 Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, in addition to being selected to the 23-24 All Pac-12 First Team. The year prior, Bona was named to the 22-23 Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, ranking second in the conference in field goal percentage at 65.5%. All told, Bona appeared in 66 games with 65 starts over 2 games with the Bruins, averaging 10.1 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 1.7 block shots per game. Prior to UCLA, Bona was a 21-22 McDonald's High School All-American after starting at Prolific Prep in Napa, California. Originally from Nigeria, Bona moved to Turkey when he was 13 and represented Turkey at the FIBA U16 European Championship. In 2019, he averaged 14.1 points over 7 games while ranking second in the tournament in both rebounds and block shots. So a lot to digest there about who he is and some good contextual background there. But what was clear for me from day one was the belief from the Sixers organization. And you know what talks louder than words is the wallet. And there are some strong indications that the Sixers will be signing this guy to a standard NBA deal, which is not the norm for a second-round pick. Sure, it happens to a lot of guys, but one of the reasons that it's so important for players to get in the first round is that comes with a guaranteed contract. That is not the case for second-rounders, but Adem Bona looks like he's going to earn his anyway. Now, we talked a little bit about the stats there. There were a couple more points that I did want to note about his UCLA numbers before I dive into what I'm seeing in Summer League. And that some of my concerns here, we'll start with the personal fouls. 3.3 per game as a freshman in just 22.9 minutes per game, and then 3.6 as a sophomore in just 26.5 minutes per game. The foul issues do seem to be something that he's going to have to work through a little bit there. But I did want to speak a little bit more positive to the shooting numbers there. That those free throw percentages were one of the larger concerns with him. Shot 57.3% in his freshman season and just 69.6% last year. Neither of those numbers are great, but I am optimistic that that will swing in the right direction. Just last night, he shot 6 for 6 at the free throw line. That it does feel there's a little bit of touch. He's working on kind of this short push shot that's a little bit like the Isaiah Hartenstein shot that we did see with the New York Knicks against the Sixers on full display. Something like that would be pretty essential or important to add to his game and could open him up in a lot of ways. But what I think is very clear to him is he knows how to play within himself. And that's something he's been open about as well. When asked about his role, he said, quote, staying true to myself, doing the things that I do best. Whatever the team needs me to do, I'll do it. Doing what I do best defensively, running the floor, and just the overall positive outlook that he presented, that was really cool. He is a guy through all the interviews that I've seen seems to have a great head on his shoulders. He's also very excited to be sharing the floor and playing alongside Joel Embiid. He had this quote on draft night that I thought was very cool, speaking about Embiid, saying that, quote, I'm so excited to be there. Actually, my older brother is a Philly fan. He's really excited right now. Probably he's back home in Nigeria watching. I can't wait to be there, man. I'm also getting the opportunity to meet Joel Embiid. So I do love this quote here coming from Bona, and it is clear that a guy coming from Nigeria, had that like motivation or inspiration from Joel Embiid. And I do think we take that for granted a little bit for how important he is for inspiring aspiring basketball players, especially those coming from maybe not the traditional route to the NBA. For Joel, who did not step foot in America until he was 16 years old. So shout out to Joel Embiid for being a beacon of light for people like Adem Bona, and shout out to Adem Bona for what he's going to bring to this Sixers team overall. Now, obviously, it is not just Bona. That the backup center position has been a point of concern for the Sixers throughout the Embiid era. And the reason that I say that is on most teams, the backup center is essentially a plug-and-play type role. That is not the most important thing in the world, but that is with teams that are not built around a 7-foot Cameroonian who's the most important player on both sides of the floor. So for the Sixers, there's always been these monstrous gaps when Joel Embiid steps on the floor. And it was hoped that the long-term backup center position could have been solved with Paul Reed, but ultimately that did not prove to be the case, as there was a bit of regression in his play last year, did not take the necessary strides forward that was hoped, and ultimately he did sign with the Detroit Pistons, where he will be playing alongside Tobias Harris once again there. But for the Sixers, they did make some moves outside of things. And by the way, you can check out a full breakdown on the Paul Reed and Tobias signings also on the channel right here on Sixers Digest as well. But the Sixers did make a signing beyond just the second-round addition of Bona, and one of those being bringing in Andre Drummond here. Now, this is a guy who's a proven rebounder, who talked about Philly like it is home, who's very excited to be here, and a guy who is very confident in his rebounding abilities as a whole. He was even asked about this specifically, if this is a problem he's aware of on the Sixers team, is this is something, and he had some pretty convincing answers to this here with Andre Drummond. He said, quote, "I pride myself on my rebounding. I set out from my rookie year to be the best there ever was to do it. I stand on it to this day that I'm the best rebounder to ever play the game." And he was asked specifically about that Knicks series by Kai Carlin, to which he replied, quote, "I think that's why I'm here, to eliminate a lot of those issues," with once again that referring to the rebounding struggles this Sixers team did have. So there's no doubt that Andre Drummond is going to be the guy that gets first dibs at the backup center role. But the reality is, there is room for both, and particularly on the games in which Joel Embiid does not play at all, Bona will likely get the chance as the backup center for those opportunities. And there's even some people believing that he could potentially share the floor with Joel Embiid. We had this this tweet on draft night from Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer saying Adem Bona will be the best backup in Joel Embiid's Sixers career. Pure energy and hustle. But Bona's versatility could also enable him to play with Embiid for two big lineups. Embiid can space on offense, and Bona can handle perimeter matchups on defense. So very optimistic frame from Kevin O'Connor there. I would love for that to be the case. I certainly don't think it will be from day one, but could potentially grow into it. I will say from my eyes, and part of this I will throw back at the Sixers, that they've been playing zone defense exclusively through 2 games in Summer League, which doesn't make any sense to me, particularly as these guys have never played together before or have a familiarity with what their experiences are, and probably have not played that much zone compared to their man-to-man opportunities in general. But Bona has been a guy that when he has been switched out of the perimeter, I haven't been impressed so far. There was one time specifically I remember him getting put on skates out there that it was a little concerning to me, but he still has some really redeeming qualities. His number one is going to be as a shot blocker. Once again, the 5 block shots in game 2 is really impressive stuff. There's a finite amount of players that are capable of doing that right there, and he is a guy that can fit that bill. The work rate, the motor is 100% there. That he is a little bit similar to Paul in the fact that you have to reel him in a little bit for foul issues and maybe doing some stuff a little out of bounds, but he's much more controlled in his decision making. He's not going to be a guy dribbling between his legs and, creating his own jump shot in a way that is probably not the right opportunity to do that, which we did see from Paul Reed at times. But for Bona specifically, I do believe this is something that is both a great long-term investment as a guy who could be the Joel Embiid backup of the future and potentially play with Joel, as well as in the short term where he's the archetype of center that just keeps the game simple. He's going to catch lobs, he's going to block shots, he's going to set good screens, and he's going to work his tail off every second that he is on the floor. Now, to Kevin O'Connor's point here, I do think there is something to be said about playing Joel Embiid with another big man, or at least another plus rebounder. That is something that's super appealing for me. That as much as I'm in favor of this demon time starting 5 with Tyrese Maxey, with Kelly Oubre, with Paul George, with Caleb Martin, and with Joel Embiid, there will be certain matchups where you need a little more size and a little more rebounding. And I also think he brings up a really good point about the stylistic nature of Joel Embiid. As much as he is as true of a big man as it comes at times, he is a dude who's very comfortable on the offensive end, just taking mid-range jumpers or three-point shots. And what that means is when you're the primary rebounding option, there's essentially nothing crashing the offensive boards. If you can find a high-level rebounder who is comfortable getting dirty, getting in the mud in the way that we saw with even players like PJ Tucker, as much of his shortcomings, this was something that I did think he did at a pretty high level, sitting in that dunker spot and competing. Kelly Oubre and Nico Batum each did a pretty solid job of it last year, but if there is a guy that is a true offensive rebounding monster, if Bona's able to carve out that role for himself, there could be some spot minutes there that could potentially turn into more. So I think stylistically that is something the Sixers should look deeper at, and taking a lottery ticket on a guy like Adem Bona is a great way to do it. So overall, there's still a lot to break down for Summer League, but I do think Bona is paving the way to have a standard NBA contract, and the expectation is that that will be done, that he is expected to be a member of this full 15-man Sixers team, and I think the ink will dry on that paper a little bit sooner than a lot of people expect there. But overall, just another great job by Daryl Morey, that for all the flaws and critiques you can have, he's been an excellent drafter for the Sixers team. We're talking about guys like Tyrese Maxey, guys like Isaiah Joe, guys like Paul Reed, guys like Adem Bona and Jared McCain. Sure, he's not 100 for 100 here, or guys like Jaden Springer and ultimately giving up. You can argue the management of assets or management of talent or decision-making on playtime, but none of that falls directly on Daryl Morey's plate exactly there. The bottom line is he's drafting the right guys, bring them into the Sixers organization, and we'll see what they turn into from there. But I do think Adem Bona is a great name to add to that list. So we will see what he turns into from here, but a guy that I am very intrigued by what he could turn into after the first couple games of Summer League. And once again, I will be headed out to Las Vegas myself starting Friday to take in these games in person. I'm very much looking forward to having a chance to talk to a couple of these players and see ultimately what they can bring to the Sixers team, what their outlook is. But let me know what you guys think in the comments for now. How optimistic are you about Adem Bona and what he can bring to the Sixers team? I personally think there's a lot to like from what we've seen so far. His motor has absolutely popped off the charts to me, but let me know if you agree or disagree below. Also, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already and dropping a like on this video. We got plenty more content coming out right here on Sixers Digest, so keep it locked and talk to you next time. Peace.